Into the PHNX Cardinals podcast presented to you by the DraftKings Sportsbook app, America's top-rated sportsbook app. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. I'm Johnny Venerable here on a Wednesday with Bo Brock live at the PHNX headquarters in downtown Phoenix. Bo, got a fun little football game on the docket come Sunday afternoon against the visiting unbeaten Philadelphia Eagles. What can you tell us about the current state of the Redbirds as they practice today?
This team is getting healthier. It seems like they're getting more and more confident. Actually more than just a quarter, a good quarter of play against the Raiders. They actually put together a pretty decent half. So things are slowly but surely getting better. But man, I mean, if a team can kind of throw you off track in that momentum and get back into the dog days of losing at home, which we haven't seen one in nearly a calendar year, it's this Philadelphia Eagles team. But, we can start to kind of poke at this undefeated team coming to town, but Arizona Cardinals getting healthier, not at the kicking position. It looks like Matt Amendola is going to be the guy hopefully putting them through the uprights, because Matt Prater has already been ruled out. What's going on with those shades?
Is this their new kicker? We got the picture of the new kicker here? Is it
No, that's Rodrigo Blankenship. Matt Amendola does not look like that.
He does not go with this handsome bastard there.
He doesn't wear the rec specs. No,
that's disappointing. Now I can't root for him.
Can I also say this? And I don't know if I'm allowed to disclose this because of media rules and regulations, but I'm just going to do it. And if I get my hand slapped, then fine. If I get my credential revoked.
Mark Dalton, cover your ears.
Yeah. DeAndre Hopkins, I believe, was in the building today. DeAndre Hopkins is back. He's not going to play this week, obviously, but when you're suspended, at some point you are allowed back in the team facility. Obviously, you can't practice or anything, but D-Hop, 2 weeks from tomorrow, Johnny Venerable will be playing football for realsies.
Can't wait for that.
There's no way that you just said for realsies.
I did.
It's very for realsy. What's up, Isaiah? Good afternoon. You what? Things are going. Appreciate you, King. DeAndre Hopkins. Yeah, I wonder what he's doing. Like getting some food to go, maybe getting a workout in, getting a sweat in at the Tempe facility. I love it. Team guy. I mean, listen. I don't know how far it's going to go. It's going to be based on his play and how effective he is, but he's due like $30+ million next year. They probably want to see what he's been up to. Is he in good shape? He looked like he was in the best shape of his career when I saw him at training camp. He was unstoppable. So that's good news. Is it not good news that Billy Price is on this team? Low key, Brock. Is that out of necessity? We've got Jose in the chat. Billy Price, declined first rounder, lost his job to Trey Hopkins a couple of years ago. Was good working with Hernandez when he was with the G-Men. Well, Will Hernandez is a better player than Billy Price, undoubtedly. And, Billy has had a couple stops, and I'm a little concerned, Bo Brock, this is more than just depth. Could he see playing time on Sunday, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's very possible. We talked to Will Hernandez, a big part of that group, a guy who's been one of the most steady offensive linemen for the Arizona Cardinals. And he says, look, the mentality is next man up, kind of throwing it back, the old cliche, one that we fell in love with the BA era with, like that next man up mentality. But, you have to look at the guys who they have right now beyond the starters. If Billy Price has to play for this team, yeah, you should be concerned no matter. I mean, when you look at the interior of this Eagles defensive line, it's terrifying. Fletcher Cox is still playing at a decent level. And you got some good pass rushers there. You're going to have to slow them down. And if you want to if you should expect a shootout probably. And if you're going to be able to kind of pull your own weight offensively, you're going to need good protection for Kyler Murray. And if Billy Price is in there, then I'd be a little skeptical that they can get that good protection.
Well, let's run through the hypothetical scenarios as it relates to the offensive line. Tackles are healthy. They look good, Beachum and Humphreys. Will Hernandez was temporarily removed from the game last week, and so he's fine. So it really comes down to Rodney Hudson's got a foot, right? And then Justin Pugh's got a stinger in his elbow. It seems like the most likely scenario is that Pugh definitely misses the game. But Rodney Hudson, what can you tell us about the Cardinals' former Pro Bowl center?
It's tough to tell on these days because he's out regardless. He's got those vet days off, so I don't know if they're using that more as a smoke screen. because he was on the injury report at this time last week. He came out of the game, as you mentioned, and he was back in there. I think it's just a depth play, and that's a unit that usually gets ravaged throughout the season. You're sitting here at week 5, and they just saw a guy that they were a little familiar with, as you tweeted out, Johnny, at Johnny Venerable, that this team had met with Billy Price during the summer, and they just felt like, hey, we'll bring a guy with a first rounder on his resume, and couple him potentially with Kugler, their offensive line coach, and maybe he can work his magic and them have depth along the way. But like, he's right there in the mix. Like, Billy Price is right there in the mix as far as Max Garcia and Sean Harlow, where you trust them about as far as you can throw them, and they're big boys. You can't throw them that far.
Cody Ford was supposed to be kind of that plug and play guy. As Justin Pugh attempted to return from injury earlier this year, he's on injured reserve. So yeah, if you're picking between Sean Harlow, Billy Price, and Max Garcia, that's a tough place to be. But it's better if you're just replacing one guy, obviously, than two. Here's hoping Rodney can play. We've got a comment here. Elo 5 Beecham, right tackle Kelvin Beecham, according to Elo 5, has declined horribly. I wonder if Josh Jones can play some right tackle. Well, I know he can. But the Cardinals feel more comfortable with Beecham right now. I think Jones, if you had to ask me next year, he's absolutely in the mix and the starter at right tackle. What he can't play is interior offensive line. We saw that last year. They tried to fit a square peg into a circular hole, and it did not work out. He's a finesse type of player in the best possible way. Let's get to this now, because I know a lot of people want to talk about it, Bo Brock. So Andy Isabella, former Arizona Cardinal, ex-Cardinal now, we can say, for the last 24 plus hours, was cut by the team, not claimed on waivers, Bo. So the Cardinals are saddled with some of his money. However, supposedly up to six teams are interested, including the Kansas City Chiefs. Should Cardinal fans be sweating this scenario, or should we say, in my opinion, good riddance, God bless, Andy?
Yeah, just say good riddance. Let's just call this what it is. It's a divorce, and just go separate ways amicably, and just wish Andy Isabella well, because according to Kliff Kingsbury, his head coach for his entire career, he went out as a very classy individual, had a discussion with Kliff Kingsbury in K2, divulged a little bit of what was said in that meeting, and including what the parting words were for Isabella. And he said, coach, prove him wrong, coach. And obviously we continue to can follow the tea leaves that this organization knows what's being said on the outside of the building there. So that the fact that Andy Isabella is his message is prove him wrong. Nice thing for Isabella to say, but also that's kind of some dialogue going on within the Arizona Cardinals organization, that this team feels like it's not getting the respect, and that people believe that, they see that people aren't buying into them through 4 weeks of the season. It's interesting to me, but yeah, classy move by Andy Isabella. I'm not concerned that he's going to go in and make a big impact elsewhere. He could, like we talked about our audio only podcast, we really deep dive what's going to happen next with a guy like Andy Isabella, and also went wrong with Andy, that we believe he'll probably be on a practice squad. He'll get up to speed, and then he'll get an opportunity, and it will probably look similar to what it looked like in Arizona, where he's not able to take full advantage of those opportunities.
I agree with that. And listen, everybody's been through breakups here. You have to have some kind of understanding that that person that you're no longer with could have success after your relationship. You should hope for that, right? Now, in the Cardinals' sake, they're probably not hoping Andy goes somewhere and has 1,200 yards, and that's an indictment of them. But this pick is already a failure. You cut your losses. You see what else you have. And what the Cardinals have, Bo Brock, is, I think, a budding group of receivers ready to step up after that lackluster start to the season. And we saw that at practice today. Antoine Wesley, amongst others, returned. And I think he is one of the most underrated players on this team. I know people are talking about, well, what can he offer? He offers size, something that Isabella and many of his counterparts, his ex-counterparts with Arizona, do not offer. Greg Dortch, Hollywood Brown, Rondell Moore, all undersized. And then AJ Green, God love him, was back there moving around. That's a shocker to me. So how does this receiving corps kind of shake out Sunday? Are there enough mouths to feed? And God forbid, is AJ Green going to settle back in his old wide receiver 2 situation on Sunday?
Well, I mean, he's the Z receiver, right? He's the guy that's gained the
Is
trust.
he though?
Look, he is, and look how they approach the snaps between Rondale Moore and Dortch. It's like,
I don't like that either.
I know you don't like it. I'm just telling you how it is. It's just unfortunate. Okay. It absolutely is unfortunate, and I don't
got to take my medicine here.
But it's like AJ Green has earned the trust of Kliff Kingsbury and the organization and the coaching staff as far as who they believe can play that role, that Z outside receiver, the best. And they still feel it's the 34-year-old AJ Green coming off of a knee bruise. And, Antoine Wesley, could he play X like he did at the end of last season, filling in for DeAndre Hopkins? And then you start to move around Hollywood Brown. You move around Rondale Moore and you move around Greg Dortch. I don't know how you get all of them on the field at the same time. Probably not. You just kind of mix and match. And Kliff Kingsbury says that the team's going to be very cautious or just smart as far as how they approach these three guys potentially coming back. And Colt McCoy is the backup quarterback, and Antonio Hamilton, who looked juiced up out there. He was excited to be on the practice field on the defensive side of the football. But it diversifies your wide receiver core. And I think that in itself is important for this team and what Kyler Murray wants to do. And especially on the, and it might frustrate people, but like those 3rd and short situations, like AJ or Antoine Wesley can maybe win some one-on-one battles if that's what the philosophy is. I don't agree with that as well, but that's what they're going for. They want to incorporate big plays again, and those guys can make some big plays. So
yeah, I love Cardinal fans. They've got a lot of class, and they have a lot of smarts in the chat. Wesley is good. Most people agree Wesley should be inserted into the starting lineup along with Greg Dortch. But I think we're going to see a starting receiving core that has AJ Green back in it and Rondale Moore taking more snaps away from Dortch. Now, Dortch is still effective as a punt returner, and I think he is somebody that will have a roster spot for the rest of the year, absolutely, because this group has been shown to be injury prone. But I think we're going to get some context now of what a pre- and post-Hopkins world is going to look like. And if you're Greg Dortch, I hope you don't get pushed too far down the depth chart. Cardinals House saying in the chat, love that icon. Wesley is really good, and Hollywood Brown is good. We will beat the Eagles. I like that mindset, my friend. And, speaking of black helmets, so they're going to debut this weekend. We've talked about them ad nauseum. Is this kind of the magic elixir to break this egregious almost 1 year home losing streak at State Farm Stadium? Because you play better when you look better. And the Cardinals uniforms, look, you know how I feel about them. They leave a lot to be desired. At least with this helmet now, maybe you got some extra players coming back. I mean, how do guys feel about the black helmet?
They're pumped up about it. And I actually have to tell an embarrassing story. Kyler Murray held his media availability today, and I asked him about the black helmets, and he threw me for a loop and asked me what I thought about them. And
did he really?
I kind of stumbled. I wasn't expecting him to answer my question with a question. And I called them clean. And I don't think that's the correct adjective that you want to use for the.
That's fine.
Clean would be like white, like the Bengals uniforms are clean. They're the white on white.
Yeah, I agree. I think like the Bengals uniform is a good that's how you use clean.
Right.
The black helmets, I would say sleek.
Yes.
Hot. Etc.
Everything what I said. So
Emma is our resident Gen Zer here. So when we try to be cool, Bo and I in our mid to late 30s, we go to Emma. I think your response was more than fine. Most importantly, what was Kyler's response to you saying clean?
He was just like, matter of fact, like, okay. He was just like, they're cool. I'm just glad I didn't say like dope or rad. What's the wrong answers only? Man. What are those?
Wrong answers would be dope, sick, cool. Like the way that he said cool, like
Bobby Mack said these are sick, bro.
Yeah, no, but honestly, like coming from like Kyler's perspective, if I asked you that question and you said clean, I'd be like, oh shit, he knows his stuff. Okay, cool.
Okay.
So it's a decent answer. I personally wouldn't do it, but I'm 21.
Right.
This
is Emma saying I messed up,
this is
not royally.
No, you didn't mess up royally. I think like for your age, you used it in a decent manner.
That's in the
kind
chat.
Of a backhanded compliment, but I'll take it.
In the chat, Sly says drip, flip, or skip. That's one way to go about it. On fleek, according to Mike A. Tubular, tight, on point, clean. I don't think I would have been as quick enough to even say clean.
Those are the bomb. Yeah, that's probably. It's good I didn't go that far.
I'm very happy you did not say they are the bomb.
You know, it's a good temperature check is when the Cardinals are playing Sunday. National media is going to see these helmets for the first time and maybe their reaction. And we'll see if anybody says these look clean. I think you'll be surprised. I think there'll be some people that throw that out there, give you some love, Bo Brock. I'm going to give some love right now to one of my favorite new apps. It's Underdog Fantasy. We use it every time we can, specifically during Football Sunday. It's a great place to dabble on your favorite player statistics. If they're going to go up, if they're going to go down, you can search in the App Store, click in the show notes below, use that promo code PHNX, and guess what? Underdog Fantasy, friends and family, is going to double your first deposit up to $100. I put in 100. They gave me an additional 100 to dabble with. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code PHNX. Get in on the action today.
I'm starting to look at tomorrow's Thursday night game between the Colts and Denver.
Colts are dead. Dead team walking.
Matt Ryan, 0.5 interceptions, the higher lower game on Underdog, which is so addictive. Yeah, hit the higher. You've got, let's see, what's a good one? Russell Wilson.
He's little Chubb action, sack lunch on old immobile Matt Ryan. I'd be all over the defense for the Broncos.
Yeah, hit it up. Underdog. It's addictive. Definitely love dabbling on the new app, and also love to dabble over at Four Peaks, our favorite brewery in Tempe. And we've got some great events coming up, including ASU Hockey Night. They're going to unveil the new arena, and we've got an event going on. Sold out. You can't even go if you want to. Maybe you can find some tickets on the secondary market. Can you sell?
You're not allowed.
Can't do that. But we've got more great events. If you missed out on that one at Four Peaks, stay tuned for more information. Check out their great beer, of course. Wow, wheat. You've got Kilt Lifter. You've got the Hazy. So many. Pumpkin Porter. It's unbelievable. You got to be 21 years or older. Enjoy responsibly.
Big matchup this weekend against the Philadelphia Eagles. And Bo, you and I have been kind of making the rounds over with the Philadelphia folks, the fine Philadelphia folks, their podcasts, their shows, and highlighting specific key matchups for Cards hosting Philly. And on the surface, to me, I think this game is going to be one like last week, line of scrimmage. Cardinals did something they hadn't really done all year against Carolina. They dominated the point of attack on each side of the ball. Defensive line got after Baker Mayfield, and the offensive line, I don't think, was leaned into enough because they were running the ball at will. They gave up one sack in the process. So my key matchup for this game is really going to be former Arizona Cardinal Hassan Reddick versus DJ Humphries. I would say Fletcher Cox versus, God forbid, a Billy Price. That wouldn't be good. Hopefully it's Rodney Hudson. Those are the two positions right now I'm looking at, offensive and defensive line. How do the Cardinals mismatch or have an advantage against Philly and their stout lines of scrimmage?
Yeah, they do. They're the anti-Cardinals. I mean, they get a ton of pressure. They've got some great pass rush specialists, and they got that guy Cox in the middle that's just a monster. And then they've got some great cover guys, Darius Slay, 2 picks, and James Bradbury's been playing well after coming over from New York. So there's some very scary guys that they're going to have to keep tabs on defensively. And I think that the Eagles are the team that the Cardinals want to be, like offensively and defensively, and they've just executed early on this season. Now, they had the luxury of playing just some bad teams, including Washington. The Commanders are awful, and the Lions will get into a shootout with you. You got to look more at that Lions games. Like, they'll give it, there's opportunities to score on this team. It's just like, are the Arizona Cardinals going to be able to come out and have the offensive firepower, not shoot themselves in the foot early enough to where I think that they can match this team? Now, will they? That's the biggest question. That continues to be the question with this Arizona Cardinals team. And, it's nice to get healthy, but we saw how incorporating guys back in the lineup has been tough for this team. Rondale Moore, 3 catches for 11 yards, not enough. How are you going to force feed AJ Green the ball again, who in his season so far has been tough, and his hands don't look as solid as you'd like him to be. And Antoine Wesley, how's he going to look? He went down a long time ago. He went down pretty early in training camp. So to knock the rust off, if he's available come Sunday, how are they going to do that on the fly against the team that's unblemished for the season, Johnny?
Brian in the chat, this is my matchup right now, like Zaven and Isaiah Simmons, assuming Simmons plays a good amount again, whether or not Nick Vigil comes back into the starting lineup. How do they do at the point of attack in space against the playmakers, including Jalen Hurts for Philadelphia? The Cardinals got screened to death by a rather now limited LA Rams team, and it didn't matter. The Rams did what they wanted to do in that matchup. Philadelphia is much more explosive and physical with their playmakers. Hurts is a big guy. He's a fierce runner. And then you talk about somebody like A.J. Brown. Can Byron Murphy duplicate his Devontae Adams performance from 2 weeks ago? 2 catches for 12 yards. I think, in a weird way, that matchup lends itself to Byron because he's much more physical. He's not a top end burner. So what does that mean for Marco Wilson against Devontae Smith? This will be the biggest test since the Kansas City opener for this defense. Now, they're giving up 16 points per game. We'll be asking a ton for them to duplicate that. I don't think they can, but can they keep Philadelphia under 30 points and force 1 to 2 turnovers in the process and allow the Cardinals offense to continue to get right? That's going to be the biggest key. Jose in the chat saying, not going to lie, I'm scared with Rodney Hudson questionable. Johnny and Bo, does Billy Price offer some peace of mind? I don't think so. And I would say, not because of him as the player, Billy Price has been with the Cardinals for a day. Like Sean Harlow, if you're in a position where you have to start somebody, Sean Harlow's going to start because he knows all the protection schemes. He's been with the team for multiple years. He may not be as good of a player as Billy Price, but there's more than just the physical aspect. So then you're talking about, okay, Sean Harlow and then probably Max Garcia back at left guard. That is dicey. So, I mean, they can get by with Max Garcia at left guard. They did in the second half after Justin Pugh went out against pretty good Carolina defense. Where they're going to have issues, and everybody knows this, is if it's Harlow and Max Garcia against that kind of dreaded defensive line for Philadelphia, Bo.
Yeah, I think the biggest key is to try to make this offense one-dimensional, and that is making Jalen Hurts beat you with his arm. But obviously take away a lot of the screen game and really slow down Miles Sanders, who is underrated across the league. I think it's fast back, great at catching the football out of the backfield. And, we've seen the Cardinals, when they can slow down the run, they had their best performance against Christian McCaffrey last week. And when they're giving up chunk yards, it's different. It's night and day. If they can limit the run game, and that's where Nick Sirianni and this team was able to kind of find itself last season and propelled themselves to a playoff appearance, and they're parlaying that into a hot start here. Like, if you can make them one-dimensional and Jalen Hurts has to beat you downfield, I think that's your best bet. Now, people might say, hey, well, he's grown as a passer. That's all well and good, but we still haven't seen that happen yet, where he's taken over a game with his arm and been that rhythm passer that a lot of people are skeptical that he can become at the next level. Like, we've seen him take some very large leaps forward. Like, he is a lot better NFL quarterback than people ever imagined, but still. Correct. You can take him from a very above average quarterback and make him pedestrian by cutting kind of their offense in half by taking away the run game.
I like this comment from RBG, assuming this is to Kliff Kingsbury in the Arizona Cardinal offense. The ball needs to move north and south, not east and west or backwards, and get under center sometimes. I saw today the Cardinals lead the league in running out of the shotgun easily. They are by far the most that do that because they never operate under center. And that's unfortunate, RBG, because we saw with Colt McCoy last year in the lineup, they did run some under center offense. I'm assuming it's because Kyler Murray's size, but I'm with you. I can't see any more jet sweeps to Rondale Moore. Give him a real route tree. If you're dead set, Bo Brock, on playing him over Greg Dortch, let him run the same routes that Greg Dortch does. You weren't trying that cute shit with Greg. You allowed him to kind of flourish as what he was. And what we saw, it carried through from the preseason in the first 3 weeks of the season. So I'm with you. I think that the Cardinals set the tone last week against Carolina and ran up and down and did whatever they wanted to in the ground game. And I think, Benjamin needs an additional, touch or two as compared to last week. Jose mentioning the Cardinals did well in the pistol formation. I agree with that. Jalen in the chat, Hurts threw for 330 on this team, only in his second start. I remember it well. He's much better now, and you can make an argument. I mean, how much better is the Cardinal defense than that day? They no longer have Chandler Jones and Hassan Reddick. Loto Capone says the last time Hurts played in Glendale, it was like watching a heavyweight fight. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, this Eagles team is a lot better than that team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, it was back and forth. It was, I think both teams scored in the 30s in that game, right? And it was the season the Arizona Cardinals had the hot start and fell short. You remember that one?
Yeah, and I remember that many times. Yes.
Yeah. But that's when they needed a win. They got a win at that time and still fell short later in the season. But look, I understand. Like, he put up big numbers, but that was the game plan. That was the game plan, that they were going to force him to try to beat him with his arm. And like, he performed very well, and he's got some better receivers. I mean, at that point they had really nobody. They had like, did Zach Ertz even play that game for the Eagles? That's one thing. Like, when you talk about Zaven Collins and you talk about Isaiah Simmons, it's like Dallas Goedert is having a pretty good start to the season. He's close to 250 yards receiving. And, is Isaiah going to have the assignment of spying Hurts, or is he going to be covering tight ends like they said they drafted him for? And then Zaven's going to have to keep tabs on Miles Sanders. So it's tough. It's really going to be interesting to see, like, that defensive line, that front seven. They're going to really have to be on top of their game to make sure that they're not going to give up some big chunk plays, some big frustrating plays on third down to move the change.
I've got the box score up in case you're interested from that game. In December 20th, 2020, Hurts did throw for 3 touchdowns. He was fantastic. Ran for another. So he had 4 touchdowns on the day as a rookie. Zach Ertz did play that day. He was the leading receiver for Philadelphia, had 69 yards. Alshon Jeffrey also had a nice day. 2 receptions, 63. Quez Watkins had a nice catch and run. Greg Ward Jr. also had a couple tutties. So it was a Kyler Murray show that day. I think Fitz had a touchdown. We're due. Every show I've been on, it's just like, we're just kind of waiting because it's coming for Kyler Murray to break out. And I think he has definitely been hampered by the consistent inconsistencies from the receiving core, the mix and matching, some inconsistent offensive line play from the interior, mixing and matching guys. So I think he could also benefit Bo Brock from a little bit better play calling. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, you can bet on new customers $5 on any NFL team to win via DraftKings. Get $200 back in free bets if you do. We mentioned the big Thursday night matchup, mañana. I am not a fan of the Colts. You can dabble on the Colts if you so choose. Matt Ryan, his props for the evening. Everything and anything on DraftKings. And folks, if that's not enough, everyone can boost their winnings with DraftKings. Step up same game parlays right now. For every leg you add, you can boost your winnings up to 100% with payouts bigger than ever. Why bet on football anywhere else you wouldn't? And to make things even sweeter, you can throw down on step up same game parlays once per day all season long. I'm big on the Broncos tomorrow. I think they get back on track, and I think Indy's season probably ends. And it's simple for you. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use that promo code PHNX. That's promo code PHNX on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See those show notes for details, Bo.
It's definitely a pair of offenses that have started the season that can put you to sleep as far as the Broncos and the Colts. But if you want an alternative to that, if you don't want to watch Thursday Night Football but you're still having trouble getting to sleep and staying asleep, OG's is changing the game. They've got their brand new Sleep Edition gummy. They're flavoring dreams along with flavoring life. OG's has now got that aquaberry flavored Sleep Edition gummy that has 2-to-1 THC to CBN ratio. That means that CBN, it's the compound that helps put you to sleep and keep you to sleep. Highly recommend you check out OG's online. That's at ogsbrands.com, OGEEZbrands.com, and on Instagram at ogsbrands. You can find their products at your local dispensary. Got to be 21 years or older.
Do me a favor for a hot minute, everybody. Smash that like button. It helps circulate the video around the YouTube metaverse algorithm, if you will. Smash the like button. I'm going to smash my fist into my wall because NFL.com did a ranking of all the rookies, top 25 rookies from the 2022 draft class thus far, quarter of the way in. Bo, would you care to guess how many Cardinals were on that list? This is from Daniel Jeremiah.
I would say goose egg?
The old big zero.
Yeah.
Maybe even like a negative. Didn't even get a, honorable mention for maybe the nice trade they made for Hollywood Brown. But here's what I will say. Most of the players on this list, Sauce Gardner, Chris Olave, Trayvon Walker, Devin Lloyd, Garrett Wilson, Aiden Hutchinson, Drake London. Most of these guys were way ahead of where the Cardinals were picking. So that tells you, Johan Dotson, Jack Jones, interesting name, ASU alum, Tyler Lindenbaum, Romeo Doubs. I mean, has there been a rookie to you? Because first, I want to contextualize it. Like, the Cardinals don't play rookies. We get that. We know that. We're going to talk about that here in a second. Has there been a rookie to you that you feel like would have been a better fit than Hollywood Brown at pick 23?
No. Not at all.
Yeah.
The kid from Jacksonville, was it Lloyd, that played at Utah?
Yeah.
He was 27th overall. He was I think the rookie of the month in the AFC. Just a monster. He's everything that Steve Keim wanted when he drafted guys like Isaiah Simmons and Zaven Collins. But it would be absurd if they went a third straight year drafting a linebacker. No, and the guys that they were rumored to be targeting are all pretty damn good, especially at the wide receiver position. I mean, Jahan Dotson has been, one of the few bright spots as far as Washington's offense goes. And, I think outside of maybe Treylon Burks, who he's made a play here or there, but the wide receiver class has been unreal to start. And if the Arizona Cardinals were legitimately in on any of those guys and rumored to be in on Lindenbaum, good for them. It seems like their scouting came around at least on who they liked, but if any of these guys go to the Cardinals, do they even get enough hay to show, that they were worthy of the pick? I don't know if they can, because I'm just going off a couple snaps. They're under 100 snaps as a rookie class, I would assume, and it's not even close. And that's unfortunate. We saw 32 snaps from Trey McBride last week, and he had 3 catches and 24 yards, and that was encouraging. But it's also like Stockholm syndrome. Like, they've beaten us into believing, hey, 3 catches, 24 yards, and 32 snaps is good, when other teams are getting guys who are making impacts now, big impacts. And that's unfortunate that as a Cardinals fan, you can't rely upon your rookie class right out of the gates to get playing time and then get to make an impact.
Well, it's also frustrating because the Cardinals are not productive right now at outside linebacker, and they took 2 rookies in the 3rd round that just so happen to play that position. Myjai Sanders can't be active. He hasn't been active, I think, since week 2. Cameron Thomas does not play snaps on defense. So that position, you look at maybe next offseason, maybe the trade deadline. We're going to preview that on tomorrow's pod of what the Cardinals can do to add some help, because it's not going to come presumably from the rookie class. They don't trust them for whatever reason. This year with this group is going to come down to 2 guys. Hollywood Brown, who's 8th in the NFL in receiving yards right now. Like, say what you want about everything that's going on with the Cardinal rookie class and what's most notably not going on. The Hollywood Brown acquisition has been a slam dunk. And I think if you would have taken a pulse of the fan base, and certainly the national media, when they made this move, people thought it was a reach. And I know it's early. It's 4 games in. People thought it was an overpay. People are like, that's a player trending in the wrong direction. He is on pace, and these numbers aren't going to stay consistent, I don't think, because of Hopkins coming back, and the position will get a little diluted. But almost 1,500 yards. He's been fantastic. He doesn't drop passes like he did in Baltimore. And we still haven't seen him stretch the field yet. And that's coming when Hopkins takes away the opposing team's number 1 corner. So that has been as close to a slam dunk, and he is a huge reason you are 2-2. You might be 0-4. Had you taken like a Trent McDuffie or George Karlaftis, as promising as some of those young guys have looked in the short term, I mean, you would be in huge trouble. There's a good chance you'd be 1-3 or 0-4. And then Trey McBride, you mentioned it. He's playing a little bit more every week. He is trending toward being the co-starter with Zach Ertz, and they threw him the ball early last week. That is a positive. Those reps are paying off. He missed some time, Bo Brock, in training camp. He has made up for it now. And for me, like you mentioned it, like we're at the point now I want just to see them on the field and know that they've earned the coach's trust. I feel like I have that with Trey McBride now.
Yeah.
He's going to be a part of the offense moving forward.
It's really going to be interesting to see how they maneuver this roster to incorporate, the 3 guys who are healthy, because the Andy Isabella cut wasn't even to make room for any of those guys. They're practicing, right? Whenever they're activated officially off the IR, that means they're going to have to make 3 roster spots. So you have to imagine, like, Jesse Luketa, who they just signed back to the active roster, is he on the chopping block? Trace McSorley, I have to imagine his days as being on the active roster. Can they slide him through to the practice squad one more time? It's really going to be fascinating to see how they maneuver this and how many casualties are from the rookie class, like this Christian Matthew, who they cut before the beginning of the season, and they were able to put him, back on the active roster. Like, does he make it once they get healthier and healthier at the cornerback slot? It's gonna be fascinating.
Christian Matthews might be in trouble because look
probably
at the cornerback group now, and there's not a bunch of Pro Bowlers everywhere, but they're at least capable now. they've got 4 guys, I think, that they feel like they can roll out every Sunday, and then you compound that with 2 safeties that can cover. I mean, this is the best I felt about the defensive back group with the way Antonio Hamilton looked at practice today, and you were there, Bo. I feel great about what's coming from that group. And offensively, we've said it ad nauseum. They are going to just be too talented by midseason to continue like this. They may not score 40-plus points in a game this year, but they're going to sleepwalk their way to 20, 25, 30 points a game in the second half. With the defenses that they play and the amount of targets and weaponry that they have, assuming people stay healthy, and I know that's a big if, and that's in part because of Hollywood Brown and Trey McBride. Those were their they invested a premium in offense, and I think clearly we have not seen the best of that yet.
Right. It's going to come down to play calling and execution of that play calling too. I mean, regardless of what the names are and how eye-popping they are and headlining.
Does it make you feel better, though, that Kliff has been able to use Hollywood Brown effectively? Because Hopkins is his own outlier thing. He was already a proven commodity, all-pro receiver. But, I mean, Hollywood Brown had a nice year in Baltimore last year, just eclipsed 1,000 yards. I mean, Kliff has inserted him and has gotten him targets and open. That's at least progress, right? Or am I grasping for straws?
Sure.
Here?
I mean, there aren't a whole lot of things that you can celebrate offensively through 4 weeks of the season. And Hollywood Brown and him, projected according to you 1,400 yards and probably 8 touchdowns. I think those are your projections, right? I mean, you take that. That's still going to outpace most of the rookie class as far as wide receivers go. And you got a 3rd round to boot on that. So you've got, and Cam Thomas, I saw it in the chat. Sorry, I missed who said it, but he's playing more and more snaps, slowly but surely. But we're still not seeing trust in the young pass rushers outside of Thomas. I mean, Thomas, I say he played more. He played 9 snaps. So I don't think, unfortunately, they're going to cut DK and Devon Kennard at this point. It's just they can't. They're hoarders as far as vets on this defense that are fringe roster types that, Vance Joseph, he's like guys who hoard dead cats. He hoards vets who make minimum impact.
You've been watching that Dahmer documentary on Netflix.
No, God. Yeah, no, but I don't know what their deal is in their reluctancy to do it. Obviously, they've talked so much about trust, and on the offensive side, McBride's gaining trust, and the other guys, it's kind of the status quo since the beginning of the season. So, I mean, if there are any kids in the room, maybe just turn the volume down. It's just time to embrace the fuck them picks mentality. Have we reached that point?
I am into one thing with this franchise. I think people know where I'm going. I'm into winning football games.
Yeah.
And there are different ways to do that. And you have to lean into what you're good at. You know what this team's not good at? Drafting players in April. And we will celebrate the draft and cover the draft next year. Come to our draft party. It's going to be awesome. TBD on where that's going to be. Right now, I want to ship every day 2 pick they have for proven veterans to help come and kick ass this year and try to get to the playoffs and win playoff games. That's what I care about. I don't care about Joe Schmo at Bumblefuck University that's going to project to play 10% of snaps in 2023. Go get Daron Payne, ship out a 3rd round pick, call it the Chicago Bears, inquire about Roquan Smith, inquire about Robert Quinn. I liked your assessment of somebody like Jerry Hughes. We need some of these teams that are fringe teams. I know a lot of people think the Cardinals are going to be in this spot too. So, I mean, we're hedging our bet that they're not. These bad teams that we knew were going to be bad that have won a couple games early, it's time for you to fall off and go on 5 and 6 game losing streaks so we can circle like buzzards and pick the carcass of your franchise and steal some of your players. I am 100% with Bo. I don't know how you could be a fan. I get it. It's a Kime problem, right? And everybody's going to point that out. Well, if the Cardinals had the right GM in place, they would draft better players. I mean, 100%. You have ground to stand on with that. He's a below average drafter. You know, he's really good at acquiring players, veteran players. His NFL scouts are do a nice job. Zach Ertz, Marcus Golden, Devon Kennard, Kenyon Drake, Chandler Jones, DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, what if you could pick one player for the Cardinals to trade for, no matter the price, assuming it's realistic, this trading deadline, who would you go with?
I'd go with Daron Payne.
Yeah.
I think that he's a guy that can come in and immediately kind of stuff the run a little bit, wreak some havoc. create some pass rush lanes for other guys and play and fill a need that has been needed for so long in the teeth of that Arizona Cardinals defense. A close, I think they could acquire Payne and then like a mid-level pass rush specialist between now and the end of the trade deadline. I mean, you have enough draft capital and you're not crazy as far as salary cap. I don't know what the hell happened to all the salary cap. Last time I checked, it was just over $6 million, right? Isn't that right, Johnny?
Yeah.
So they're not Scrooge McDucking swimming in salary cap money.
And no one wants to hear about salary cap when the team in your own division manipulates it. And here, I want to get to this comment here. Marcus in the chat. I think this is a valid point, but I want to address it. So here's what he says. Marcus says in the chat, we won't be able to afford veterans down the road. So we better win the ship this year. If we win them at all, Rams going to feel it and are right now. If the Cardinals make trades at the deadline and make the playoffs, then the trades were a success. That like for this franchise, not everybody. The Buffalo Bills, if they make a trade and don't win the Super Bowl, it was a failure. But we have to contextualize it based on expectations of a franchise that has made the playoffs how many times since they moved to Arizona? It's building blocks, right? And I don't want to hear about, I'm sorry, who this is going to leave out next spring in free agency. Let's worry about that in March. I worry about Byron Murphy getting paid in March and Zach Allen and company. I don't care that Deron Payne's a free agent to be or Robert Quinn's older. Like, here's what I care about: beating the holy hell out of Jimmy Garoppolo and putting Matthew Stafford on his ass and destroying Geno Smith and winning the NFC West. And if those guys can help you do that, hang a division banner, get into the wild card, get hot with Kyler Murray, compliment your young quarterback, give him a top 5 defense. We want everything to be perfect. We want to build the perfect roster. We want to hit on every draft pick. It's just not realistic. The Cardinals just need to lean into what they're good at.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, theoretically, you'll have all these draft picks to draft and develop players, but like the theory of insanity is in full effect with this organization. It's like to expect the same thing, do the same thing, and expect different results. It's insane. Steve Keim is not going to just figure it out one day. It's not going to click. He's not going to be on a beach someday, and it's just going to come to him like, oh, I'll go to Power 5 players from those conferences.
From the SEC.
Yeah, I'll go get them, and he's done that, and he's failed at that too. So it's the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, just kind of – I know that when you mortgage the future, you have to pay that future mortgage, no doubt about it at some point. But when you have a quarterback the caliber of Kyler Murray, who's going to enter his prime years, you put him on the best possible team you can put at during those years. And then you figure everything else out afterwards. Like the salary cap really is a year-to-year thing. Like you can look at how you can get scared off by the sticker price of what your salary cap projects and future monies that guys are going to be making and what that cap number is going to look like. But there's wiggle room. There's way to maneuver that stuff. And the only way it doesn't really work out is if your players like take a shit and they just completely suck and you're stuck with a bad contract.
Get hurt, right?
Yeah.
Tom Baum in the chat. Problem with trading for players is the depth issues we have. I disagree. You trade picks for players right now. That helps your depth today. Cardinals have shitty depth in their front 7. Ship out one of your compensated third-round picks from next spring, you're in good shape. Deron Payne helps you because J.J. Watt's got health issues. Zach Allen has never completed a full season healthy. That helps supplement that. And I would also argue, like, does anybody think we have quality depth at outside linebacker right now? No, because the 2 rookies you drafted, the coaching staff right now doesn't have confidence in them. So it doesn't even matter if the Cardinals have 20 picks next spring. They have to play and contribute. And this franchise has shown us for far too long, for whatever reason, they do not trust rookies. And it's not exclusive to second and third rounders. Trey McBride, Myjai Sanders, Cameron Thomas. Isaiah Simmons could not get on the field as a rookie. And if Vance Joseph is here and Steve Keim and Kliff Kingsbury, that's going to be consistent for X player they take next year. It would have to be, you would have to knock it out of the park with the rookie that you take next year, and they force their way onto the field. And unless you're Kyler Murray, I don't know who has that been in the Kliff Kingsbury era that said this guy kicked ass during training camp. Maybe Jalen Thompson as a supplemental 5th round pick is the only player I can think of, Bo, that came in because here's the thing. The expectation is that you make the playoffs this year, and the expectations are going to be, guess what? That you make the playoffs next year and do better. Who is helping you do that in your rookie class next year? Nobody.
Yeah.
But you can convince a Deron Payne to come here and love your culture and love this team and re-sign with you in free agency. And a la Zach Ertz last spring, Bo.
It's just taken far too long for these guys to develop. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago on an audio-only podcast about, the development and how it forces this team into making tough decisions like Christian Kirk or letting guys hit the free agent market after having decent seasons, and teams that have ample cap space being able to maybe overspend for those guys. And the Arizona Cardinals are just kind of SOL because they don't know, by year 3 or extension time when they can get the guys on a team-friendly deal, whether they can play or not. And we're just finding out about Zach Allen. I think we had a pretty good idea about Byron Murphy. And now if the representation is smart, they either, they have all the leverage with Steve Keim, or they're smart and they hit the open market and get the highest dollar they can possibly get from some team that has a ton of cap space in the offseason. So it really is, they don't do themselves any service to drafting, developing, and signing guys to lucrative deals or team-friendly deals going forward. It's really crazy. And they're going through that vicious cycle again with this group where we're not going to know a whole lot about this draft class any more than we knew going into the season about a McBride, about Cam Thomas, about Majay Sanders, whether or not they can hang at the NFL level. And I doubt we'll even get enough the next season.
If I'm Steve Keim and I got an extension, but maybe my job is on the line, maybe I can't look down the barrel of a 5 or 6 game win season. And I don't think the Cardinals, even without a trade, are going to do that. But hypothetically, why would I not say, Michael Bidwell, I'm going to trade some picks. We're going to get some help because we're going to make the playoffs this year. I think that only if I'm Steve Keim incentivizes me to make a trade. Because, hey, we weren't very active during the year. It's not like you're taking on a bunch of money. Most of the time in these trade scenarios, it's guys that have expiring contracts. The team has moved on. The team might pay a bunch more of their contract if you give them a premium pick, like a second or a third rounder. It does not derail your franchise. And the Cardinals earned that third-round comp pick from Chandler Jones. So wouldn't it be very poetic to then bring in a front 7 pass rusher to help offset his absence? And Bo's absolutely right. The Cardinals would have paid Christian Kirk $8 to $10 to $12 million a year to stay here and to continue to grow with this organization. They didn't know what they had, and they misused his development and forced him outside while they aided, Larry Fitzgerald as a slot receiver. That was incorrect on their part. They should have put him at the slot since day one, just like Hassan Reddick should have been allowed to play outside linebacker from day one. And those guys probably have already inked extensions with this franchise. And then on the defensive side, Bo mentioned it. Byron Murphy, Zach Allen, it's great, breakout seasons, but open the checkbook. And then, you don't want to be paying Zach Allen top 5 defensive line money, but you might have to if he has a Pro Bowl season because you didn't hedge your bet. I want to remind everybody, it's still pretty hot out. I'm here in Maricopa, Arizona, and I carry water with me everywhere. And the Arizona Department of Health is reminding everybody to stay hydrated. Got the holiday season coming up. It might be easy to feel like you don't need to hydrate. Well, you should. And if you want more information on that, go ahead and visit azhealth.gov, Bo.
Also, you got to tap in, even though it seems like it's still hot. It's fall, right? Pumpkin spice everywhere. You got the pumpkin porter from Four Peaks, and you got the fall sale over at More Furniture. More Furniture is going to hook you up. Go to morefurniture.com. Spruce up your home, your living room, your dining room, wherever you're hanging out, your bedroom,
your gamer room. If you're Kyler, Kyler's got a good gamer room.
Man cave.
Yeah.
So you're seeing it in the chat right now, Johnny. Breaking news here on PHNX Cardinals. Our old friend Annie Isabella is joining the Ravens. Nice job, Emma, getting this up. Aaron Wilson, NFL reporter of Pro Football Network, putting it out there that Annie Isabella, 2nd round pick, 62nd overall, 2019. is joining Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. How do you like the fit, Johnny?
Well, I don't dislike it. Here's what I'll say. I think most of us assumed he was going to get an opportunity fairly quickly. You're attached to that draft status, and there are teams that probably had a high grade on him. This also makes sense because he's from the East Coast. We all connected him to the Patriots. Massachusetts pretty close to, guess what, Baltimore. He probably wanted to go back home. The Ravens, it's close. It's close enough. It's East Coast. Don't scoff at me. It's not like he's in freaking Nebraska. I would say that for Andy, this works out well because their offense is kind of a one-trick deal where the intermediate passing game is dominated by their tight ends. They want a deep threat. They lost Hollywood Brown, the receivers, Rashad Bateman's not doing all that hot after a quick start. I think it's fine, but you know what? He's not going to get a bunch of robust targets. You're only going to see glimpses, Andy, and that's something that you didn't take advantage of in Arizona. Kyler Murray has the most attempts in the NFL. You could be feeding off of 8 to 10 targets a game if you would have blossomed. Instead, you might get 1 to 2 with Baltimore, assuming you're on the active roster. You can't be catching it with your body. You know what I mean? Right. Like you can't be quitting on routes. So I'm happy for Andy. We felt like it was going to be pretty seamless, him getting picked up. I said within a week. It took less than 24 hours.
Right. And I think Devin Duvernay already is better at what Andy Isabella does than Andy Isabella by a lot. Like Duvernay is kind of figuring it out in his third season. Kyler Murray's cousin played college ball at Texas at a very high level. And is that speed guy, maybe not the tallest wide receiver. Andy Isabella is going to get, very little, as you said, opportunities. He's going to have to take advantage of them in that offense. Obviously they like to lean on their tight ends and Mark Andrews, and we're already seeing Isaiah Likely get some looks at a tight end out of this recent draft class. But yeah, we'll see. And it looks like it's not even a practice squad opportunity. I mean, it looks like he's going to the active roster.
Well, if you watch the receivers on Sunday, and I did because I had money on Lamar throwing multiple touchdowns, that did not cash. They were looking for bodies. But what would you say? Because there's a lot of this on Twitter right now, and I'm surprised by this. I would get it for somebody like Isaiah Simmons. A lot of people pushing back on the notion that Andy is a bust and that he was, quote, not used properly under Kliff Kingsbury. Do you agree with that? Or do you feel like, as we mentioned in our pod yesterday, like this is an Andy problem?
Right. No, I don't agree with that at all. I think that this is a player that was given ample opportunity to prove himself and just never did it. He even after the big preseason that he had this year, and he had so many different variables went into him even breaking with the active roster. And then he gets an opportunity when AJ Green got hurt, when he had the knee bruise, for Andy Isabella to go in there and play the outside receiver position, the position that he played and excelled at in the preseason. When there was live ammo there, he cut his route off on a big play on third down. That if he just kept running, he could have gotten a PI flag like he did 3 times in the preseason.
They didn't score that drive.
But for whatever reason, he shut it down. He had like this. I don't know why he froze up in the regular season when he wasn't doing that. He was just playing very well in the preseason. He just didn't. He just didn't perform when he needed to. 33 catches in parts of 4 seasons. Just wasn't enough production from Andy Isabella. They tried to find role after role for the guy. There were opportunities in the preseason. There were opportunities in the regular season. He became inactive 2 seasons ago. So, no, this is not a Kliff Kingsbury. Like, does it play a role into it? Could Kliff have developed him a little bit better, found that role that would have fit him? Fine, but ultimately it came down to Andy Isabella not performing and not being an NFL caliber wide receiver. And I think you're going to see that in Baltimore. You might see him make a play, but consistently, he's not a guy that can consistently make plays for you at the NFL level.
If you're a Cardinal fan, just look at the receiving room right now. Maybe Sands, AJ Green, everybody in this group right now, especially when Hopkins comes back, you would take over Andy Isabella. You have more trust in Wesley, Dortch, even somebody like Rondell Moore, who's had big explosive plays, obviously Hollywood, and then Hopkins. Like, there's 5 guys not named AJ Green that I would trust over Andy Isabella. He made everything look difficult. He could not do anything seamlessly. We talked about it in our podcast yesterday, Bo. Like, he couldn't even do the most mundane things. He couldn't play special teams. We mentioned him in the same breath as Mecole Hardman with Kansas City, who was taken in that same loaded second round. At least he can return kicks. Andy got beaten out in every facet by Greg Dortch this preseason into this season. And literally, I think he would have been cut sooner, right after the preseason, had it not been the injuries to Rondell Moore, Antoine Wesley, and suspension of DeAndre Hopkins. He probably would have been gone a long time ago. He's probably fortunate to be around getting his checks until this point when other guys got healthy. So we wish Andy the best. We don't root for players to not have success here unless you play for, somebody in the NFC West, then, forget it. But in all seriousness, be sure to like, subscribe, leave us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. We are back with our trade analysis show tomorrow pod. Be on the lookout for that. Then we have our big Eagles preview show in studio on Friday. Myself, Bo Brock, Frank Sanders for Bro Brock. I'm Johnny Venerable. We'll talk to you tomorrow. See you, everybody.